Kirby Smart and the Dogs have five-star quarterback Gerard Curtis on the commit list for the 2026 class. But the big question now is who comes after that? Which quarterback in the country in the 27 class is looking at Georgia and saying, hey, you know what? I know you just landed Gerard Curtis, but I'm going to come on board next. I want to be the guy coming right after him, right? Doesn't make a ton of sense for a lot of guys out there to come right behind a five-star quarterback, but Georgia's got to take someone, and there are several options out there. So I know it's a long way to go. A lot of people don't really want to even think about the 27 class yet, but it's still the quarterback spot. It's still important, and this is the year where we talk about this stuff, right? SEC Media Days are next week, so right now, still a week away, we're going to dig into some more recruiting, right? So now we're talking about which quarterback comes after Gerard Curtis. So quarterback targets in the 27 class. Let's get it started. The first guy that I think we have to mention here is a guy I've talked about for a while now, and that's Teddy Gerard in the Kennesaw-Ackworth area. He's a four-star quarterback. I think he is the best quarterback in the state of Georgia for the 27 class. I know the other bigger outlets probably disagree with me, but I've got him number one. Somewhat of a Georgia legacy. His uncle played for the Dogs, played quarterback actually, and Teddy Gerard is a really good athlete with size, big-time arm talent, earned a Georgia offer at the end of the spring, early summer, basically late May, whatever you want to call that, and his recruitment has absolutely taken off. Notre Dame has jumped on board, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson offered this past week. I expect them to be in the mix, so he can basically choose where he wants to play. And he does have a Georgia offer. I've said many times that I think Georgia probably should have offered him sooner, but he is a big deal. 6'3", 195. I think he's probably closer to the 200-pound range. At North Cobb Christian last year, threw for 2,647 yards, 31 touchdowns. The kid can run as well. Former baseball standout, probably could play baseball at the collegiate level, but he's going to be a big-time quarterback at the college level. He'll be at North Cobb this year. He's got talent all over the place. I expect him to absolutely light it up for North Cobb as a junior and be one of the state's leading passers. But this is a guy that does have a Georgia offer now. I think Georgia's going to be in the mix throughout his recruitment. Easy four-star guy, probably a top 10 quarterback prospect in the country when it's all said and done. And he's an in-state guy with Georgia ties. So definitely a guy to keep an eye on who's going to have a monster junior season. So he's one that Georgia fans definitely need to know about. The number one quarterback prospect in the country, probably not going to be at Georgia, right? The top guys really aren't going to want to play right behind the five-star that they just signed. Teddy Gerard could be different for, several reasons that I just spoke about, but Elijah Haven does have a Georgia offer. I think they offered June 1st. He's the number one quarterback out of the country out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana, 6'4", 205. Didn't exactly lap the stat sheet, especially compared to Elijah Haven, who I'm going to talk about in a second. I think Georgia has a better chance of landing. Peyton Houston is the other guy, but Elijah Haven's number one. Don't think he'll end up at Georgia, so it's time to move on. Peyton Houston, another kid from Louisiana who did light up the stat sheet last year for evangelical Christian. He threw for 4,480 yards. Led his team to a 5A state title, 38 touchdowns. He also rushed for 690 more yards, 7 more scores. He was in Athens February 1st. So this is a guy that Georgia's been on for a while now. Here's what he had to say to us about that visit. He said, the message I consistently heard from the coaches at Georgia is that it's all about the standard and competition. The whole coaching staff is on board with the same goal, and that's to develop players to the next level and develop them as men. They achieved this through daily competition, both on and off the field, and by holding their players to a high standard. He's ranked as the number 8 quarterback prospect in the country, number 78 overall prospect. So I think only one of those guys will end up at LSU. The other probably going out of state. Still probably a guy that's not leaning towards Georgia after they just signed a 5-star, but he is familiar with Athens. He knows the coaching staff. He's been there before. He's held the Georgia offer, so he's still a guy to talk about. But moving right along, right, because there's other guys to talk about. J.C. Johnson is a 4-star dual-threat quarterback from Lowndes in South Georgia. He does not even have Georgia in his top 6. He came out with that pretty recently, so no reason to talk about him, but he did have a Georgia offer, and this is a guy who can absolutely play, big-time arm talent, but he's going to do that somewhere else. But another in-state guy to keep an eye on is Kareem Huey out of Gainesville. Now, he's not the biggest guy. I believe he's 6'1", 190. That's what I have in my notes. But as a sophomore, he led Gainesville to a really nice season last year. And Gainesville is one of the top programs across the state. So it's hard to make a really big impact as a sophomore anywhere. But he did it at Gainesville. Really impressive. Had a really nice season. 2,543 yards passing, 22 touchdowns. With 3 more touchdowns on the ground. He's the number 13 quarterback prospect, number 172 overall. Should have a really, really, really big junior season. Quick release, good fundamentals. The ball zips out of his hand, so he plays and throws the ball like he's bigger and heavier. But he can move. He's a mobile kid, smart, intelligent, knows what he's doing, knows how to play the quarterback position, and he is only going to get better. So this is a kid, easy 4-star, 45 minutes away from Athens, a guy that they know, a guy that they've offered. He's a guy to keep an eye on, I believe. So Kareem Huey at Gainesville, a guy who's going to have a really nice season. Definitely a guy to keep an eye on. Another kid who I believe has a Georgia offer, at least he's told us he does, is Jamison Purcell, a 3-star from Illinois. One of the top quarterbacks in the Midwest, especially in that 27 class. He was at a practice back on March 13th to watch the Dogs for a spring practice. As a sophomore last year, the 6'3", 195-pounder threw for 2,572 yards and 30 touchdowns, completing 70% of his passes. He's ranked as the number 27 quarterback prospect in the country of that 27 class. That ranking's not going to excite a lot of Georgia fans, but this could be the year where they look and they find a promising 3-star, maybe a kid who can move, with promising arm talent, who might have to sit and develop and learn, who has his best football way ahead of him, right? So when you take a 5-star quarterback, only the likes of kind of Ohio State and maybe an LSU can do that year after year after year. Alabama does it, and Georgia does, for the most part. But when you take the number 1 quarterback, it's hard to land another top guy in that next cycle, right? Now, Georgia has done a good job of taking really good quarterbacks year after year after year, but in this 27 class, I'm not sure there's one of the highest ranked guys out there who's going to jump on board and say, you know what, I'm going to come in right behind Gerard Curtis, who has a chance to be one of the best quarterbacks in college football if he continues to progress and develop and learns and has a big, first season starting whenever that may be. No one wants to come sit behind them. These quarterbacks want to play, especially these, highly ranked quarterbacks who are going to bring in a lot of NIL money. They want to play early. They don't want to sit on the bench. And it seems like whoever comes in behind Gerard Curtis might have to do that. But again, at the end of the day, I don't think Georgia is going to go a whole recruiting class without signing one. So eventually they're going to have to land someone in this 27 class. But a name that I like, who doesn't have a Georgia offer yet from the state, actually right in their backyard, is Ben Musser at a Prince Avenue Christian. Came in as a sophomore for them and really excelled. He did a really good job when he was kind of named the starter and thrown into the mix. Big-time arm talent, can run and can throw. He's in that pass-happy offense at Prince Avenue Christian, a guy who does show good footwork, can push the ball down the field, put up some pretty decent numbers for a guy who didn't start all season long. He's going to have, I think, a gigantic junior season. Might be one of the state's leading passers this upcoming season, and he might do that as a junior. So Prince Avenue Christian, a program that pumps out quarterbacks year after year after year. Ben Musser is next, and the offers are going to come. I think he is an SEC caliber kid. I think he's going to have a bunch of Power 4 offers. Would not surprise me if Georgia gave him a look, a kid out of their backyard, a kid they can land, especially if Teddy Gerard says, you know what, I don't want to sit behind Gerard Curtis. I want to go somewhere where I could play a little sooner, and he leaves the state. I think he's a big-time option and a guy that Georgia can land, but it wouldn't surprise me if he said, you know what, I might just go somewhere else and find an opportunity to play a little sooner. So if Georgia doesn't or has a little trouble signing these top guys, I think Ben Musser right down the street is a guy who is, I think, a really good quarterback who's only going to get better, that Georgia can say, you know what, this might be our guy. A promising passer who might, have no problem sitting for a year or two and being a capable backup until it is his time, and a kid right down the street. So we'll see. But he's a guy to keep an eye on. I'm not saying he's going to get a Georgia offer, but it would not surprise me. However, I don't think it's a crazy talented quarterback class in 27. There are some guys who are pretty good. I think Teddy Gerard is very good. I think he's a top 10 quarterback prospect in the country. I think he's the best quarterback in the state for that 27 class. And he's got ties to Georgia. So he's definitely a guy to know. But there are a few others that I think Georgia fans need to keep an eye on as well. So that's my spiel on the 27 quarterback targets. Won't be easy to have a guy jump on board behind Gerard Curtis, but got to get someone. Those are a few names to keep an eye on. Thanks for watching. Hope you learned something, and I'll see you over on Dawg Post.